Hey there, we got an F650GS in the shop today, and the reason it's here is the gentleman was having a hard time finding a BMW shop to service the motorcycle. A lot of dealerships, not just BMW, won't take motorcycles that are older than 10, 15 years old. And there's a few reasons for that. But what do? Well, you can buy a new bike. Certainly not the frugal option. And this is still a perfectly good motorcycle. In fact, it is pretty close to new. It's only got about 1,500 miles on it. One of the things you're going to have to do often is changing the oil. And you can definitely save some money by doing that yourself. So, in this video, I'm going to show you how to do that.
You'll need some basic tools for this project. Here are the hand tools that I used for this job. You can find a comprehensive list along with links to purchase in the description below. Torque specs are listed in the description as well. First, we're going to remove the 4 bolts holding the left turn signal on. You'll need to unplug it. Once you get that off, give it a little wiggle to get it free. Next up, we're going to need to remove this plastic cover so we can get to the oil tank. To get to all the bolts, we'll need to remove the seat. Alright, we've got to take 3 bolts out to get this side cover off. The one here that was underneath your seat. The one here. And the one that can be obscured by your fender. Just leave your bars turned slightly to the right and you'll be able to get to it without taking the fender off. And if you're not doing this on a lift, that'll be easy. These are also T25, same size as the turn signal. Now that we've got these bolts out, we're gonna take out the oil cap. There's a little plastic dowel down here. You're gonna wanna pull out on that. And there's 3 plastic tabs that interface with this centerpiece here. So, you wanna pop those up and off it comes. Now that we've got that plastic cover off, first thing we're going to do is break this drain bolt loose, but don't take it out yet because you'll have a mess. It is a M6. Shouldn't take much, shouldn't be too tight. I even snug it back up so it doesn't leak. And now we're going to remove this bolt and these 2 clips here and here. Usually you can get the clips off by hand, but I like to take a set of pliers like so and pull them off. Grab the clip like that, then take the pliers like that and then just pull it off. Saves your fingers. Same for this one. Right there. Pull it off. Once we've got those clips off, I'll take my ratchet here with a T30 on it. Careful not to lose the washer and spacer. Take those out. The idea is we're getting this loose so we can take the oil tank off, then take this out and tilt it so that we can drain all the oil out. So you're going to want to pull the oil tank out away from the frame. Sometimes these can be a little stuck on these dowels. Keep in mind there's washers here. They were little plastic washers, so don't drop them. They'll be hard to get with a magnet. Pull this out. All right, and now it'll just kind of sit there Now that we've got the oil tank off the dowels on the frame, we'll take our 6mm Allen socket here and thread this out while applying inward pressure. Once we start to feel it at the end of the threads, we'll quickly pull it away and let it drain. Gently pull it over to the side. Don't get too mean with it because there's hoses attached to the bottom, obviously. I like to drain oil into a completely clean oil pan, just so I know if I find any glitter or anything like that, I know it's from this bike. Looks like it's about done dripping. We got a new crush washer. Thread this drain bolt back in and hand tighten it, and I will torque it once the tank is reinstalled on the bike. Put it back on the same way it came off. Pinch these between my fingers like this washer and spacer. Go ahead and hold it right behind the slot. Put the bolt through so they don't fall. Go ahead and start that into the air box. Put the washer on. That washer on. Might have to push on the tank a little bit to get the slot lined up. There we go. Take my T30 socket, snug that up. Once the oil tank is reinstalled, I'm going to torque this drain plug. BMW calls for 21 Newton meters. That's pretty dang tight. I'm not saying they don't know what they're doing, but that's pretty dang tight, especially considering these threads probably have some residual oil on them. So I just do 15 Newton meters, and I haven't had an issue. Once that's reinstalled, I like to clean any residue off of the tank. The reason being, next time I do this, if there's any residue after the fact, I'll know that I'm leaking from somewhere, and it will be easier to find where the leak is coming from. Now while we're in here, it's a good idea to check these hoses that come out of the bottom of the oil tank to make sure they're not leaking. And it's a good idea to check your coolant. Okay, now that we've got the oil drained out of the tank, we're just going to reassemble it. We're going to take our panel and reverse of how we took it off. We're going to slide it down over the oil filler neck and make sure and hit all three of these tabs right here. Can be kind of annoying to get them to interface, but you want them to interface, otherwise it'll look fine, and we can't have that. Now we're going to pop this dowel back in, don't forget that. Thread this back in, but not all the way. I haven't refilled the tank yet. I just don't want any contaminants or anything to fall down in the oil tank while I'm working on it. Put our bolts in. Plug our turn signal back in. Make sure it clips. These body panel screws don't have to be crazy tight. A little more than hand tight. Next up, we got to drain the oil out of the crankcase and change the filter. First step there is going to be removing the skid plate. Now we're going to drain the crankcase oil. We need a 24mm socket for this. Get it loose. Probably noticed I put some gloves on. It's a good idea when there's a chance that you're going to get oil on yourself, to glove up, because cancer is not cool. Thread this out, same method, apply pressure till it's out, let it drain all the way. Looks like this bike has had an aftermarket oil drain plug added to it. It's got a magnetic drain plug. If you've got anything with a magnetic drain plug, you want to be sure and clean the magnet off really well and inspect it. Look for any big chunks of metal. If you do find any big chunks of metal, it could be indicative of some sort of other issue, obviously. However, I will say a lot of times transmissions and motorcycles definitely shed some metal just by nature of how they work. So unless it's, you know, big chunks or it's just covered, I wouldn't really worry about it too much. You're going to want to put a new crush washer on the drain plug, which should come in an oil change kit if you get one of those. Got our new crush washer on here. I'm going to thread this in by hand till it's seated. And then we're going to torque it to 40 Newton meters per the BMW manual. Next, we're going to change the oil filter. The oil filter is underneath this cover right here. So to get at it, we're going to take these two band clamps loose and take off the front sprocket cover. We'll remove the front sprocket cover first using a T30. And it's 3 bolts holding this plastic cover on. They're all the same length, so you don't have to worry about any particular order. While we're in here, might as well make sure that our sprocket is in good condition. The teeth aren't starting to, they'll start to look like they're turning, even though really it's just wear. So while you're in here, check that, make sure the nut's tight, all that good stuff. Next, I'm going to get a screwdriver and remove these clamps. Ideally, we would be able to slide the reservoir out, but that's not the case. So we've got to completely unthread these clamps so that we can get the reservoir out of the way. Let that go lay to the side there. Just for the sake of the video, I'm going to take these clamps all the way off. Just a little better visibility. But that is not necessary for you at home. Take a rag and just clean the area as much as possible. You want to avoid working on a dirty engine. BMW sells a funnel or oil guide, whatever you want to call it, or at least they used to. I didn't really check to see if they still do. That fits on these 2 dowels, and it basically just allows you to keep this side of the engine clean to avoid the mess from when you take this filter out. So I have fashioned one out of aluminum foil. Slide it in there. So what we'll do, slide that in there. Now, get my ratchet. These are also T30 bolts, T30 heads. So what I'm going to do is take this one loose, take it out, take this one out. Now I'm going to hold my funnel and break this top one loose. Take the cover off. Okay, once I've got the cover off, I'm going to take a pick and gently pull this out. This cartridge filter can get kind of stuck in here, which you want to avoid damaging this surface here, because that is what the O-ring that seals the oil in, that's on the cover, that's what it butts up against. Obviously, you want to avoid damaging that. Might have to work it back and forth a touch, but should pop out. I'm just going to put my oil filter down in my oil drain pan and let this finish dripping. Once this is mostly done dripping, I'm going to take a lint-free rag, stuff up in here because I want to clean this out. So now what I'm going to do is take and get my lint-free towel and go around this sealing surface right here. Make sure it's all the way good and clean. What we're trying to do is minimize any sort of chances that we might have for leaks once we reassemble this. While we're at it, we're going to take our cover, gently pull this O-ring off, and inspect it for any sort of damage, deformation. It should be not torn or ripped or anything. I tend to reuse these if they're in good condition, feeling nice and soft and supple. But not a bad idea to replace it every time, if that's what you choose to do. We're going to clean our cover. Make sure you get down in this gap right here. Clean this as well as we can. Again, we want to minimize any chances we've got for having oil leaks after the fact. Okay, once you've got your cover cleaned up and your O-ring, you're going to get just a little bit of fresh oil and coat this O-ring. Put it back on there, make sure it's not twisted. Pop it back down on that cover to run it around and seat it as well as possible. And we're going to pop our cartridge filter back in there. Make sure it's seated. Take our cover, put it back on. These filter cap bolts get torqued to 10 Newton meters per the BMW shop manual. All right, new filter installed. Okay, now we've drained the oil out of the crankcase, the oil tank, and changed the filter element. We're going to put 2 liters back in the oil tank, run the bike for about 30 seconds, and then add another 0.3 liters to the oil tank. Motul smells good. And that's why you just put 2 liters in there. It is right up to the threads. Now we're going to run the bike for about 30 seconds. Let that oil level drop, and we'll put another 0.3 liters in there. Now that we've ran the engine for about 30 seconds or so to suck some oil out of the oil tank, we're going to put another 0.3 liters in there. I like to use this ratio Rite, just a handy shop tool to have. Got some graduated measurements on the side, and if you ride a 2-stroke, you already got one of these. Now that we've added that extra oil, we're going to run the bike up to operating temperature and then check the oil. If it's a little low, we'll top it up, and then you'll be done with the oil change. Okay, I let the bike run up to operating temperature. Let the fan cycle on and off. Now I'm going to check the oil. It's just on the bottom of the dipstick at the minimum level. Right there. So I am going to add just a little bit. Alright, we're about halfway up the dipstick there, between minimum and maximum. It's a good idea to be kind of about in the middle of the range. And so far I've ended up putting right at 2.5 liters in this. So, oil change done.
There you go. Simple as that. You got fresh oil and you're ready to ride. If you learned from this video, do us a favor and click that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, be sure and subscribe, and don't forget to click that bell icon so you don't miss anything when we publish it.